All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. This is the CAPN office hours. As usual, this will be posted to YouTube, so don't say anything you wouldn't want to be posted for the whole world to see and get started.
Oh, I didn't realize that K3S use kind as default. I thought it's just optional to collect the secret DB. So they use kind as default?
I'm pretty sure it does. Pretty sure. Yeah, we should. So the question was about Slack, a post about trying to use K3S for CAPN's control planes and seeing what that would shave or what that would save for us. I believe it is. We can probably look this up. So K3S. Because I know in the V cluster setup, when you deploy it, it auto deploys SQLite into it. Into the same image. And so the process is all there. So yes, K3S server has SQLite API server and a tunnel proxy, and then it has the scheduler and the controller manager, all in the same exact, kind of like, what was it, Uber Kates? I'm blanking on the actual name. Maybe that wasn't actually it, but basically like the old like Uber binary that you used to be able to get from Kubernetes core that had everything compiled into it.
So the upgrade will be single upgrade for all.
Yeah, and a single, so single pod for no matter how big the cluster is as well. So scoping wise, it's probably a little bit different than what we're trying to do with virtual cluster and CAPN, which would be my big concern there. Is not really going to support upgrade strategies, not going to support multi-cluster, etc.
But no, for CAPN, maybe definitely not fit because the Kubi epidemic in KCP model doesn't fit for that.
Correct.
But let me think about it. For the old way, for our old cluster version way, maybe it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could. I wonder what benefits we'd get. Did they provide some input on why they were thinking that they wanted to?
Yeah, I think we either we grab that people in this meeting if he's in the US.
Let me see if I can drop a link to this in there and see if we can get them to join, since they were just chatting with us about this.
Yeah, I would like more about the use case instead of how to do that, because what exactly benefits they want? Why they want to KCS? So are they want the smaller? But anyway, I doubt how much resource. It may save some resource for sure, but how much resource is actually gained from KCS?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of they do that? It's pretty. I know it's kind of Kubernetes distribution with API server API compatible kind of. Well, yeah, I think it's better to understand the intention.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave that one open for right now. I'm gonna add a link to this thread to our agenda doc so we can make sure that that's documented, that we kind of talked a little bit about this. If they jump in, we can continue that conversation there as well. Just a note, Faye and Charles, if you want to, make sure you add yourself to the agenda doc. No pressure, you don't have to. Okay. I wanted to also, I'm just going to add this to the agenda and we can talk about that. All right, cool. So I'm going to jump in there and just kind of go on to the next topic. If they jump in, we'll switch back though. So I'm curious, Faye, Charles, Wei as well, what it would be like, or what the possibilities would be of running multi-syncer. So like single tenant syncers per virtual cluster. was that ever considered? If so, why didn't we go that path? Any concerns that you would have about that? Just kind of exploring other ideas.
Yeah. I explained that in the paper.
Okay.
Yeah, the most thing is that I know people worry about the scalability of Syncer.
Mhm.
But in fact, the bottleneck, if you really run this entire thing, the bottleneck is not Syncer. The bottleneck will be the scheduler in the supercluster.
Mhm.
So given that constraint, so you don't have to one Syncer per virtual cluster. It's just a waste of resources.
Okay.
So you have the data to measure all this bottleneck, correct?
Yes. If you look at my paper, I have a paper explaining.
The ICDCS paper.
Yeah, actually
Okay.
says, yeah, I have like explain why I can claim that the bottleneck is in the scheduler, because even if you push, when you reach a limit, if you push even higher number of the you consider thread, the throughput won't be getting higher because the bottleneck is in the scheduler. Scheduler, the Kubernetes scheduler, the maximum is about 2 to 3. Normally it's 2 to 300 calls per second. You can make it bigger, but think about it. You can connect it to hundreds of the virtual clusters. 2 to 300 per second is definitely a bottleneck.
Mhm.
You can do that. I mean, there's nothing to block you from having one single per virtual cluster. Well, certain implementation may change, the way may change a little bit, but in theory, you can do that. And in fact, the early version of the K3D, they did that way.
Okay. Yeah, I was seeing that that vCluster also did that. I was also thinking about this from a scalability side of the syncers. Yes, it would be a waste of resources. Also, because there is no current way to make each syncer have a set number of namespaces in the supercluster that it's paying attention to, that you end up syncing all supercluster resources to every single syncer, which really drives up the resource utilization, meaning every single syncer needs to scale to the size of the entire supercluster. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
The classic is a classic resource sharing problem, right? You can have a dedicated one, but it's just almost everything is underutilized. But you can have a single one. I mean, even it burns a lot of resource, but when you divide it by number of virtual clusters it supports, amortized. The whole thing is, yes, if it is becomes bottleneck, it's a different story. I got a question from even the guy say, can it support 1,000 VC? I would say, yeah, give it a try, maybe, because even you have 1,000 VC, then I believe you will have some other bottlenecks in the supercluster other than this.
Yeah, one thing that we don't want to see that interference from other tenants. Maybe they're not bottleneck, but if one tenant give a large sync job, then we end up only serving one tenant.
No,
The-
because
We have a fair queue for that.
fair queuing.
Mhm.
So Syncers currently support fair queuing. So they don't want to
Okay.
have. That's definitely a bottleneck, but we resolved it last year. In the middle of last year, we resolved it. Now
Yeah.
it's okay. And you can even make it even more fancy because it's a weight round robin. It's not directly round robin. You can even extend the VC API to give weights to different VC if you want. Well, we haven't implemented that, but the algorithm supports weight. But now everybody has the same weight.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That was going to be my next question. Is like, that's probably something that we can continue to look at as we see problems, if we see problems with it, to extend and do more priority based, almost like what APF is bringing to Kubernetes, but at the syncer level. Okay.
Yeah, so which level we bring the power a little bit up. I mean, I know the core Kubernetes has the same thing, right? They supported the the
Priority and fairness.
yeah, priority fairness, that kind of thing. But as I mentioned, the hard problem is how to set that value. I mean, in our case, we probably need to care about the relative one. So weighted one makes more sense. But the fairness thing, they need to specify which agent has how much bandwidth for that, right? I mean, setting parameters is always a hard work. You don't know how to set a number. Many people doesn't know how to set a number. So that's
Gotcha.
we want to bring it up. And I believe these two can work together, but I haven't thought about that. But seems like given the use case, given the way that we use it, I mean, the normal way you use that system. So normally, I don't think people will stress the virtual cluster to the limit, which means throw away 10,000 plus a second kind of thing. It won't do that.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting case. We'll probably start doing something like that. Try
Yeah.
hammering it, see
Yeah.
what we can actually do out of it.
I think that in theory we can still support it. The whole thing is just queue. They just queue there, and we may bloat memory for that because simply
Right.
that queue. The whole that's a reason. Syncer in production we give quite a lot of resource for Syncer, but that's okay. It's just one of them. Think about it. You have 10K of them, and you need to prepare how much resource for that.
Right, absolutely. Especially if you have 10K across 5 clusters all at the same time or something, or virtual clusters at the same time. It's going to be a hefty amount.
Is whatever's resource setting you give for single Syncer, you probably have to do for every Syncer. You probably have to do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks for talking about that. Charles, I see you added something about multi-cluster, or any other thoughts before we jump on to the next one?
Yeah, I know you guys were working on these things like supporting multi-super cluster. I just want to know the progress because, for example, if a user is currently using the federation for management multiple cluster, but the federation has a problem is the resource utilization is low sometimes. So we wanted to see if that is possible to somehow maybe replace or combine federation with virtual cluster to managing a cluster or data center across multiple regions. So I wanted to see what's the current progress of this direction. Are we still working on this one?
We do have Chris and I has a KubeCon talk for that. You want to share that slide?
I just read it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah, I shared that with Wei. Actually, do you know, did the presentation already get uploaded to, like the PDF already get uploaded to the schedule website?
I haven't.
No? Okay. I'll see if I have access. If I have access, I'll do it because I have a copy of the slides.
Google Doc slides. I mean you can post it. I mean let Charles know if he's interested.
Okay.
Do you mind if I put it in the agenda just to make it open? Like, is it okay? Or do you want
it's okay.
That would be great.
We already uploaded as public one.
Sure.
Oh, that I probably need to. Oh, okay. I think you can post it. I probably need to give a permission for it.
So this may be a fastball solution to replace the federation or maybe like alternative to the federation.
It's just the way that we think about that. It's very complicated. It's a complicated story for multi-class.
Okay.
Usually, and I know that, right? When we prepare the slides, we talked about a few months ago, so it's a difficult problem because the way that we manage. So our virtual cluster implementation stands up from the point that we want to make part as a basic unit. But even every federation or most of the current federation solutions like Kamada or OCM, like Red Hat, they use workload as a unit. I think we compared the pros and cons of implementation, and even people have different thoughts. So in production, it's definitely case by case. I think Chris likes more, I mean, leaning towards using pods as a base unit. They like that approach. But when we talk all internal guys, they like workload.
Mhm.
They like workload as
Yeah.
a unit. So federation, if you think about the federation API, they just manipulated the workload API. So the basic idea is they want to workload as a basic block, as a unit to schedule across multiple clusters.
Mhm.
One guy,
Yeah, that would be Andrea from our group, from our side of things. Jumped in for a second.
and so
Yeah.
if ByteDance want to do something like multi clusters, I think you should, do whatever they need. You need to connect. You need to figure out what exactly they want. They want to workload or they want to pod. So if they want a pod as basic unit, I think our approach is kind of a promising one. if they want to workload, it's completely different solution.
Mhm. Yeah, it's something between. So they wanted to increase so people wanted to increase the resource utilization, but they still wanted to, maybe they don't wanted to change it how they control multiple cluster, because currently most of the people are using a federation, right? So they are using workload, but sometimes they think, okay, this cluster has more resource than other one, and they are actually not being used by peoples, but they wanted to use this part of computing nodes or resource. So they wanted to, from the multi-cluster view, to see if there is any other solution can schedule some of the workloads or things to a casual to a free cluster. So yeah, I think I need to have more discussion with people, like what's their like final goal or some of the details.
It's a very complicated story. So our solution makes up quite some assumptions, right? So we first, our solution assume all the, the underlying multiple superclusters are dedicated to all the virtual clusters. So the entry point is virtual clusters. So you cannot just directly, start paths in the supercluster directly. Otherwise, they will have a lot of conflict on the scheduling. So this is our solution, but this may not fit your use case. I got a request to say people, oh, they just want share. I mean, they have, two channels sending parts. One is from VC channels, one is from their own old pipelines, CI/CD pipelines. They want to somehow use VC solution to squeeze the spare space in the superclusters. Well, that's fair request, but the solution is so different. So our solution makes up quite some assumptions on the entire thing.
Very resource focused, or yeah, quota and resource focused. And I mean, it from the pod side of things, it draws a very interesting line. I mean, what you were saying at the beginning of this about doing regional or like cross region type clusters is out of the scope, and we kind of talk about that a little bit in the in that presentation, just generally because of like Kubernetes not being good at being cross region anyways to begin with. But being so pod focused does give the ability to kind of at least touch on that. I know that's kind of something that's kind of like one of the angles that we are interested in it from, being able to span multiple clusters that we kind of treat not at a regional level at least, but like at a smaller failure domain level, and being able to span those and add and remove them dynamically is, I think, going to be our real story at the end of the day. Like, how do we make it so that we can add and remove a cluster and capacity in as needs shift from single or all virtual clusters that are attached to a single or all single or multiple virtual clusters.
Yeah. So the whole thing is our, abstract model is a serverless kind of use case. This is our primary target model. So people shouldn't be quite,
Yeah. So maybe I didn't say it quite clear. So it's not like cross multiple region. It's more like maybe, for example, we have multiple physical cluster, and since the scalability problem of the Kubernetes, so sometimes you just cannot scale up the cluster to a very large scale. So people use federation to control multiple Kubernetes cluster, but they are inside a same physical cluster pool. And for example, we also have flat network across all this federation cluster. I know it sounds crazy, but we have a flat network. Let's say I have a Kubernetes cluster 1, cluster 2, but they can talk to each other. They are inside a flat network. So in case that's, yeah. So one of the federation cluster, they are belong to one of the team, and another federation cluster belong to another team. But sometimes one of the team, they do not have, they do not use up all this resource. So we wanted to see if that is possible to have an abstraction layer on top of all this federation cluster. And then sometimes, then to the user, they are just using a virtual cluster control plane. They are not using maybe something on top of the federation, like a user interface, not like that. So they are using a virtual cluster control plane, and sometimes they wanted to create some resource. They just use the whole cluster pool, the physical cluster pool. But this physical cluster pool is managed by something like federation or virtual cluster. That is the things I'm looking for. Yeah.
I think that's very close to what, Chris, your use case. That's
very close. Nearly identical to what we want to do with it in the long run.
Yeah.
So do you think
you should point our demo of multi-cluster to your colleague to get some feedback from them. We already got enough feedback from Chris, so Apple side. So it's more than welcome to get feedback from your side. So to see what's exactly the biggest challenge in your side if you want to deal with that model. So I think that model should fit your requirements. It seems like
what's currently there should definitely.
Yeah, should be. The only thing is networking, but you have flat network, it makes it even simpler. So you probably need to have I think you need to implement a kind of the proxy for service anyway, but the solution should be simple.
With a flat network, there's another thing that we can kind of think about doing, which is something that I'm still trying to noodle about how to make this possible. But each cluster you can update endpoints across, and if clusters can talk to clusters and services can talk to can talk across those ranges. Like for example, if you're not running kube-proxy, for example, you can basically do a lot of really interesting stuff there to basically make it so that you don't need to think about the new abstractions like gateway APIs, for example. You can kind of just focus on pure Kubernetes contracts and make it so that endpoints sync across those clusters, and it kind of becomes transparent. That being said, that's a wild world to live in. It's a lot of new things that are out of the scope of Kubernetes. But the other thing that we have been noodling about, and we're not there exactly yet, but we want to look into is like, what about user level networking on top of this? So think like Istio at a virtual cluster level that spans those and provides another layer of an SDN on top of what your current flat networking is. They could provide that, or a Linkerd at a virtual cluster level, for example, to be maybe a little bit more lightweight and have at the user level, they have their own network stack that then spans that with the flat network, makes that even easier. If I'm not mistaken. So
I believe so.
Yeah. The only other thing that you're going to get into is and what isn't currently built into, well, there's a lot of features that still need to be developed for the setup that we're talking about, to be completely blunt. And you'll see that in the presentation, but like things like right now it has no knowledge of persistent data. So a cluster can't span. I mean, if a workload goes from one cluster to another and it's expecting PVs to transition, that's just not going to happen. And so figuring out how that would work, or figuring out how to do placement of jobs based on where they were originally scheduled, any persistent volumes that it needs to work with, that all needs to be developed as features to make it more production ready. But you can get like the pure stateless workloads out of the way with what we currently have.
Yeah, that's like smaller, very analog to what Kubernetes schedule was currently doing. It handles all the things that Chris was mentioning, like how do you local PV support, when you select the nodes, right? So I didn't do that in my schedule for sure. I just give a framework and I just give a very simple algorithm at the starting point. If people want to enhance that, you can just have a good reference, which is the Kubernetes scheduler. You can just think about how to make a label and this kind of thing works, or how to get information about PV. So I believe it should work. It's all about the use case. If you have such use case, you find a solution.
I see. So do we have something like per tenant quota support? Because each tenant may have multiple namespace, so we need to have multiple namespace quota support. Is that, I remember you guys were working on this thing. No. Okay.
No, this is something that we're also very interested in. So if it's something that you are interested in working on and want to like collaborate on, I know we would be fascinated, and I've got somebody on my side that's chomping at the bit to kind of start on this. Our current perspective is
what's that?
multi namespace quota. So
Oh, okay.
resource
We are
quotas, but
working-
spanning multiple namespaces.
Yeah. So we are actually writing something like multi-namespace quota controller and
Okay.
define some new CRD, but we are not sure if that can be something required by an upstream. If yes, I'm not sure which SIG group should I
Yeah, I
submit,
think,
KEP or EP.
I think Yuan in our team is going to present on the KubeCon about the elastic quota stuff, which is very
Mhm.
similar to.
I actually reviewed that slide. So it's a co-presentation with Alibaba, right?
Yep.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
I reviewed
but
it.
it's just a high level
I was
discussion.
trying to propose that in the SIG scheduler for about 2 years ago, but I tell you the truth. So everybody implement their own multi-namespace class quota management. There's no standard. There's no way to get a standard. The way that they are going to propose to the SIG scheduler based on the SIG scheduler, which is the cost quota stuff, the elastic quota stuff, which is just one implementation, but it's mainly used for big data, AI workload kind of thing. But guidelines may also go with that route.
Yeah.
You can refer to that, but that may not, it may work, may not work.
Is that the open source as well, or?
It is in the SIG scheduler. It's the scheduler plugin called the elastic.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Okay, so
you
that
looked at
one
what that
has
it
to
was
be.
designed Arc workload. I mean, they use the concept from the Young scheduler like queue. So each queue, the queue can span across the namespace.
I see. So so does that mean I need to like compile my own scheduler that including this plugin? Then I will have all those things.
You need to use upstream, not exactly upstream, but whatever your customized schedule need to support the scheduler plugin.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to just plug in, no need to compile entire scheduler.
Yeah, but I know you may just come up with your own class scheduler anyway. So like what do we do? We implement our own schedule. So we don't use.
So
we haven't
I
used
see.
plugin yet.
Okay. I thought the plugin is part of the scheduler binary. If you wanted to add a new
Yes.
plugin, you have to recompile the scheduler.
It is. You have to recompile
Oh, okay.
for sure. But the thing is, your base framework need to support that plugin, right? The plugin code is just 200 lines.
I see.
So
Okay,
Faye and Wei, you've both looked at this before. How do you see that fitting into a virtual cluster world? Does it fit, especially when you start to look at a multi-cluster virtual cluster world? Because that's at the scheduler, that feels too close to a single cluster for that to actually work in a multi-cluster world. Or maybe I'm not understanding the full scope.
Yeah, no, okay. So I tell you how. So the thing is, the supercluster need to support that plugin. But to use that plugin, they currently have 2 ways. One is the label. Second is CRD. Label, no problem at all. We will sync the label to the supercluster. CRD, you need to sync that CRD to the supercluster. Then it
Got
works.
it. Okay.
The whole problem, the most difficult problem is I tell you what, it is the preemption.
Mm,
That is the most difficult thing.
okay.
Because virtual cluster may have their view of how to preempt. Because they don't know others, right? They don't know the other virtual clusters. So they probably get some weird, behavior about preemption because they didn't realize they are sharing with others for the super.
Yes, once you schedule, it's hard to, everything works fine if there's enough room, but once you get to some tight rooms, then you need to preempt, then you have to re-implement preemption module that to make sure that you preempt the borrowed guys is not the original owner of this namespace, which is not implemented yet, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is very built part. I can think of Kubernetes about all the preemptions, priority stuff. It's pretty. I mean, in some cases it works, but in many cases it won't work well. For VC, it's even difficult because, I mean, what priority you are going to give? Every VC will set the highest priority if I'm the VC user, right?
Right. Yeah, if you give them the controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, like the batch queue just developed, they were messed up with admission controller because they don't really know exactly how much they have used or not. So there is some consequence on the long run that haven't been considered yet.
Yeah, so that's a way. So if you look at the way that we are trying to start, at least our first version, we use the namespace quota as a admission control. The whole idea is don't overcommit the superclusters, multiple superclusters. We are not ready to handle that.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of the conversation of do schedulers actually talk to each other from a virtual cluster into down to a supercluster level.
Yeah, I mean, once multiple superclusters, if it's full, they have node failures, they are full. So if they open preemptions, then we will have some challenge. It's difficult problem anyway, because we cannot do precise scheduling unless we change the way that we do it, right? We sync every node resource to the top.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, and also I wanted to update the PR. So someone just I think some of the user just submitted they try out the PR. The captain used kubeadmin, and I found some bug, and I'm still working on it. Yeah, I think I'm not sure why we encounter this bug. Is that something changed in the latest version of Kubernetes? Because I used to use the headless servers for the etcd, and I used something like etcd -0 dot the service name, something like that, to point to the first part inside the etcd. But this one does not work now. It looks like I should point to the servers, headless servers, instead of point to the specific part. I'm still looking at this problem. So not sure. Because when I was testing, I was using an old version of Kubernetes. So yeah.
Interesting. That should work. I wonder if it has anything to do with the DNS policy that's getting set up on the API server pod. Because that just looks like it can't. Like if so from the VC side of things, if I remember right, the stateful set basically gets cluster first DNS policy, and I'm wondering if out of kubeadm we're getting a different pod spec that has a different DNS config that expects it to look internally, like it expects it to resolve itself, and so that might be screwing it up. There might be something there to look at.
I see.
I don't know,
okay.
but I don't know though. Because yeah, I just opened up your PR and saw those comments.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the only block, because beside that, I think everything is working. So I'll fix this in next couple hours, and yeah, I think then this PR should be ready.
Cool, great job on this, by the way. Have you gotten the test you passed? I see that there's still one path of failing at least from
right. Yeah, I'll try to fix it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good.
By the way, do we have something like the blog or something I can read about Elastic Quota? Because I just searched the scheduler plugin repository. There is no documentation. I can just find a source code, because I need to share it with some other guy. So I think a documentation can be better.
I can find it for you. They have a KEP for that.
Okay, great.
There's an enhancement for it, isn't there? Like, didn't somebody write a KEP for this?
What's that?
I think somebody wrote a KEP for this. I know there's been a lot of different like KEPs written around elastic quota in general.
Kind of years back. Let me see.
Anyways. Yeah, if you find that way, if you find that, Faye, if you can just post that into the agenda as well, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, that's all the updates from my side.
I've got one other question that I didn't add in the agenda, which I'll add real quick. Something that we're kind of exploring from a security standpoint is trying to understand. So we obviously deploy a slightly different setup around virtual nodes to be an agent than we recommend from the open source side of things, which is why we implemented the deployment mechanism for routing to pods and rewriting every single service to or rewriting every single node object to point to a single service in the cluster or in each supercluster. I'm curious if thoughts and concerns on potentially making that so that a VN agent could be single tenant as well as a single proxy. Besides that, it'd be additional resources, giving traceback of exactly who made requests and where they go from a single tenant. So the idea there is that every single node that gets synced to a single virtual cluster would be configured to point to their own VN agent instance. And our path is obviously going VN agent, Kube API server, back down to the kubelet. Tenant, VN agent, Kube API server to the kubelet.
Yeah, you need to manipulate the way that we sync. Yeah, it's small change anyway. So you can do that. You can just point out all the traffic to the single. Besides the moment, the code change would be each tenant will know the IP that they have different IP, 21.
Right.
So
yeah,
either service or raw IP, you can go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if we can actually route through DNS for doing that, because then we could just point to a local copy and deploy the VN agent into the control plane namespace as well. So you basically have when the control plane gets brought up, also create the VN agent in each one, and then every single node gets that.
You just need to have a service. Why do you need DNS? You want the DNS to access the VN agent?
We don't technically need it, but we what I'm thinking is it would make it much easier, because when we could just route through, say for instance, if you deployed the VN agent into every single control plane namespace, every single node object that gets synced into the cluster, we could just point it at VN agent as a service name.
Yeah.
So like we don't need to think about IPs. Then we basically just route through to the local service in the same namespace. And then it's just every single node has VN agent. Doesn't matter what namespace VN agent is deployed into in the supercluster. I'll have to figure out if that'll work. I'm not sure if the DNS is actually going to resolve. It should, because it resolves etcd 0, for example. So the supercluster first DNS should route. It's just whether that actually will satisfy what we need. And the idea there is, in essence, that we can give each single pod.
So yes, API server pod and the VN agent pod in the same namespace. That may work.
Mhm.
That may work. If they want to share namespace, then I doubt that will work.
Yeah, because right now we basically run the virtual cluster. So the way that we originally set it up was we use an IP, or we sync an internal IP from the service that's deployed in the virtual cluster, like the VC control plane components, like where VC manager and VC syncer is all run. So that's what we currently have. And so we're trying to figure out if we could break that out and make it so the proxy was single tenant instead, purely so that we can set up RBAC rules around each one separately.
I mean, technically wise, this has less problem than have multiple sync.
Yeah,
because this is pretty lightweight. You can give this no resource request.
Yeah.
you can do that. I mean, if you don't want to, if you don't worry about waste of resource, but it's already scaled with number of nodes already. So as I said, it's less real than the single.
Yeah, we're still potentially save more resources than the current flow, but more than being able to do a multi-tenant proxy. So yeah, cool. All right. Is there anything else anybody else wants to bring up before we break for the day and sync up? Oh, actually, I do have an announcement. I'm going to cancel next week because next week is KubeCon. So go in and enjoy and watch things.
So you're going to LA, right, in person?
I don't think I am now. I think I haven't booked anything, so I think I'm just going to back out of being in, and since we did it virtual anyways. So like we all talked about last week as well, we should still set up a date that we can all get together and chat in person. So
you guys all go to LA?
I'm not.
I'm not either. I'm not going to either.
Yeah, I just virtually joined it.
Okay.
Cool. All right, y'all. See y'all next week.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link. Okay.
Oh, for the elastic quota, thanks. And then also, can
Thank
you
you.
make it so that the presentation is read for everybody?
I already find it. Let me try. Okay. I'll add Wei and Charles email.
Perfect.
Okay,
There you
thank
go.
you.
That's easier. All right. See y'all
Yeah.
later.
Wait.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Know you guys the email actually.
Hold on. I wouldn't do that on a recording. Let me stop the recording.
Yeah.
I guess I should end this. Thanks everybody. This is the October 5th CAPN office hours. This will get posted to YouTube.
Just send me your email in the Slack.
There you go. That's a better way of doing it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, y'all. Talk to you later.